Hello, good evening and welcome. This is Jared Walters here with my good friend and colleague and partner in crime and fellow lizard hunter, Mr. Richard Oliver. Richard, how are you doing this evening?
I am good. I am good.
I've got to stop doing that with my hands. It's because my hand, I got a weird thing with my hands where I do it in front of the mic and I shouldn't. So I apologise if anyone hears that noise. That's because I've got a weird habit with my hands. I've got to really stop it. So Richard, how have you been?
It could be worse. You could be doing worse things with your hands, Josh. Don't worry about it. I weird like this energy at the moment. If you obviously sensitive or you're an empath or you're like us and you psychic medium type thing, you might be feeling that there's some really dense energy out there at the moment.
Like rage.
And it's oh my god, it's heavy. I keep having just these I can't explain it. It's just, I can't even put it into words. It's just like a force, and you feel it, and it's neck,
yeah,
and it's so oppressive.
It manifests it's amplifying annoyances, it's like the smallest thing, and you will literally want to tear someone's head off because of it. Yeah, the only thing I can say to that is if you are experiencing that, guys, is just each day put your energy into something fulfilling and meaningful. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's playing a video game. It doesn't matter whether it's doing an internet show. It doesn't matter what it is. It's put your energy into something that you love and is fulfilling to you. And that's the only piece. Yeah. That's the only piece of grounding works. Be mindful of your thoughts. So when you're feeling intense emotions and stuff, take a stop. So say, is that mine? Take a deep breath. Take a couple of minutes just to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I just let yourself calm down a little bit, because even if it is someone that has genuinely pissed you off, it's at the moment with the amount of the fear that's been created in the world, the amount of adverse energy that's being created in the world at the moment, the amount of negativity that's happening in the world, then, if you can let us know as well on the chat if you can hear us okay, please. Because I just noticed my mic was down slightly. But if you can let us know if you can hear us. I know there's a couple of you guys there lumbering in the chat, and it's lovely to see you on here. So hello to Jay Geo, hello to Sean, hello to People's Poet. Thanks for everyone for joining the stream. So
yeah, I'm sorry. You just asked, where are you in Wales? I'm in Pontypridd, and
I'm in the Upper Rhondda. So I'm in a place called Cwm Park. Cwm Park.
That's where we are. That's where we are talking to you from, Wales.
Yeah, we're talking to you from Wales. Yeah, so tonight, have we got any updates before we start the main part of tonight's show?
Not really. At the moment, it's all sort of COVID based, and I don't really want to talk about it tonight, to be honest with you. Most of the news is coming out at the moment is sort of, apart from obviously with what's going on with Trump, but most of it is really along them lines. So yeah. Nah.
Well, we might end up end up getting into that a little bit tonight, if we're going to go down the road of Silly Street, which is what we're doing. I am hearing more and more mainstream journalists questioning these events, and they're having to say, I'm not a conspiracy theorist I'll say it again. I'm not a conspiracy theorist that believes in lizard people running the world, but and when you have to say that on things like mainstream radio, we're into uncharted waters here, I think. And I've heard that phrase a few times.
Well, as we go on, you'll see how it really fits the bill. And we'll explain a bit now as we go on, but it really does fit the bill.
Well, I tell you where a good place to start is, right? Tonight, we're going to show you some evidence from our second and sixth now investigations, where we communicated with the Council of 12 and Jonathan. I believe Jonathan was one of the people giving the information. I can't say for absolute certainty that the one is him, but I know he was giving a lot of information in this particular live stream, so I would say that it's probably him that was actually coming through. So there's a couple of clips of Jonathan coming through and a couple of clips of the Council of 12 that we're going to show, and there's some really, really interesting kind of stuff that is it's come up with. And I don't know if you remember this, Rich, but when it was coming through and it was talking about things like reptilians and that, we got quite nervous in the room. We were like, what the hell is this thing saying? It was quite hard to process that we were hearing it.
It's the thing that always made me nervous when we did the No Investigations live. Even when we've used these devices on like charity events or cases, you can't call what's going to come through it, right? You can't. It just comes through, and there's a couple of occasions where it said some stuff. It did it in Abergavenny when we did that event. It said some stuff that was really frightening. Really frightening.
It said COVID will set in and new routines are necessary, and this is back in 2018, and you can see that on our channel. That message is actually on this channel. I'll put a link to it in the description below after this stream has finished. And it's processing. I'll put a link. I'll put a card up in the top corner, so you can actually see that video for yourself. But yeah, it has, hasn't it? It's well, what was your first experience with this sort of thing then, Rich? Coming across it.
Well, I did. I had a good friend who I used to have a group called Paranormal Wales, and he was quite concerned about Planet X, Nibiru, from the Sumerian text, and he wanted to look into it, and he didn't know where to kind of start, and it was affecting him. He was watching videos. It was quite recent news. It was coming out, so we did basically nearly a 2-year investigation, and we didn't look at say predictions and things like that. We looked at links, where things linked to other like circumstances, like for example, are you right there, Jazz?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just moving.
Sorry, you're making a lot.
Sorry, I was moving the keyboard, but so the mic is closer to me, so I can be better heard. Sorry, I do apologise. Right. Carry on.
No, that's what so we were looking at things. We started sort of around the Florida votes with President Bush and how all that came about and how he became president, and then going forward to 9/11, and we sort of like, in that process, we looked at everything: the Black Knight satellite, McKenna and his links with it, and it sort of it sent us in quite a bizarre, like, it just sent us in a bizarre way, and it came across information about reptilians then, and I looked at things like to do with Egypt and just the sort of the basis of the story. And then obviously, it's grown since then. This was something that was sort of like on the dark web when we looked at it, and it's mind bending, a mind bending concept.
So the concept, as I understand it, then, right? This is if I try and outline the concept, or unless do you want to outline it, or do you want me to do it? Because I think it's best if we try and outline what the actual concept is to people.
Well, it's yeah, it's very difficult to outline because there's conflicting stories, right?
Yeah.
But basically, there is different groups of reptilian beings. They're called the Dracos, and you've got the Reptoids, which is a weird name. It sounds like a cream you'd use to get rid of them. Um, so no, it does, doesn't it? Reptoids.
Yeah.
What's that? That sounds like a cream you need
It sounds like a
in trouble.
disease. Yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
some sort of anal disease.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Ike sort of, Mr. David Icke really brought the story forward back in the 90s, coming out the 80s with this. He did interviews and he talked about the royal family. But the stories are written in history. And it's not just what we class as our history, all history.
Mm.
And it's sort of stemmed, it builds up a great big picture. Now you're going to see things on YouTube and social media where they just say it's ridiculous, it's this, it's that. But when you actually physically look at it, if you build a picture up of it, it's a quite extraordinary theory and a concept.
Well,
so it stems in really ancient history.
As I understand it, now this is what I've basically, because I came across this. Basically, ITV put a program out in the mid-noughties, which was David Icke, Was He Right? And obviously it was a program about David Icke. And I remember asking a friend, and he said, what, I remember asking a friend, who's David Icke? And he said, he's this guy who believes that lizard people rule the earth. And I was like, what a nonce. What an idiot. What an idiot, like. Sorry, different Welsh slang to most slang. Anyway, so after the experience I had in the bedroom with the Council of 12 and the experience with the messages that we started having back in 2013, bearing in mind I didn't know where these messages were coming from, between 2013 and 2016, all I knew is that the ghost box was behaving in a strange way on certain cases where the information was coming through like coherently, not like sporadically like we were used to when we were going to like a haunted place and talking to a spirit there, right? The spirits were coming through with a bit more sort of as if someone knew how to use them and were giving like messages and things. So after having that experience, I researched for about 1.5 years, and there is an element to this story which I will not go into because I can't break a confidence, but let's just say I had very, very good reason to look into it, that hit very close to home, and that's when I found David Icke's work. But I also looked into other researchers as well, and basically the story is somewhere like this, that some point deep in our past, the solar system or the area around the earth wasn't as it was. Something happened. Now all religions point to a time where man fell, or the fall of man. So things like being Adam and Eve being ejected from the Garden of Eden. There's obviously things to this in different indigenous religions and that sort of thing. Okay, and basically the idea is that humanity was hijacked. Now you can go into things like the Anunnaki and the Sumerian gods, and that they came down to earth and mated with human females, which created, I believe it was the Nephilim, correct me if I am wrong, Rich.
The Nephilim,
which were basically half human, half extraterrestrial then. Right?
Mm.
Now, these beings, or this dark force, has apparently manipulated human events throughout history with the overall goal of the enslavement of humanity. Now, the thing is, if you are in the human body, time goes as we perceive time. But when you come out of the human body, time holds no precedent. So it basically is more a series of cause and effect. There's no sort of measuring of time. There is a cause, and then when it has the effect. So these beings are supposed to be from a range outside what humans can perceive. Now, we've seen this with spirit when we've communicated with spirit, when we've communicated with the Council of 12. That's what the ghost box does, is it communicates, it uses frequencies of radio to bring through messages which are coming essentially from another reality. And that reality is basically controlling global events, and that there are several families, including the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers and royal families, etc., which have steered the course of human events throughout our history. And the overall goal is the technological enslavement of mankind, using essentially technocracy and all the rest of it. That's the premise of the conspiracy in a nutshell, right, as I understand it. Whether or not it is actually that, or whether there's validity to it, well, that's what we're going to discuss. And that's one of the things that's kind of open to debate, and that's one of the things we can kind of play with. Obviously, until reptilian motherships land on the White House lawn and, they come up with guns saying, give us your country or something, we may not know for sure. But the idea is that world events have been manipulated step by step throughout time to put humanity into a certain frame of mind. Now, if any of you guys caught our interview with John, I can't remember his surname now, the alien abductee gentleman we had on the show, John Walt, I think his name is?
John Walls?
John Walls, that's it. I think. Sorry, John, if I've got your name wrong. I am absolutely terrible with names, right? John is coming back on the show in a couple of months' time. But he did a brilliant talk on his experiences, and he mentioned something which is not very widely known, which is the war within the Council of 12, which is that certain beings rebelled, which is what we see in biblical culture. If you look at the things like fallen angels and demons or demonic entities. And this is the thing, you look at all different cultures around the world, right? They've all got this reoccurring theme of otherworldly or demonic entities, right? So, like, for example, in Zulu culture, you have the Chichahuri. In the sort of ancient Christians or the Gnostic Christians, the Gnostic traditions, you have the Archons, which they're more sort of widely known as today. In Islamic culture, you have the Jinn, even though the classification of Jinn is far broader than that, because Jinn can mean several different things. Obviously, in Christianity, you have demons, and there's several other connotations around the world for this benevolent. I always get it mixed up. What's malevolent and benevolent? Which one's harmful? Malevolent or benevolent?
Malevolent.
Malevolent. It's malevolent.
Malevolent.
Malevolent, right? It's malevolent force, right? So that's... And you can look into, there's lots of things throughout history, different traditions, different cultures, where this reptilian symbol has, or this sort of theme of the serpent, or the theme of the reptilian, has basically appeared again and again and again and again. And it's one of them things that it's quite interesting in a sense of whether or not it is a physical force, whether they're actually a physical species of something that are our quiet overlords and masters, or if it is more of like a psychological trope, because that's one of the things I've looked into and kind of thought about. Is it like a psychological trope, an ode back to like earlier man, where we perceive certain things in a certain way when we're under psychological stress? Apparently, in his book, The Biggest Secret, David Icke is supposed to have interviewed several people that were victim of systemic VIP paedophile sex rings, right? And they named very certain key people that under certain conditions they would morph or shapeshift and actually look reptilian. So there's I know Dolores Cannon speaks of this in some of her books, In most sort of spiritual books, there is the concept of the awakening. So the concept of a time where the earth has become trapped, and essentially the way the earth has become trapped is through almost like a time loop, but constantly repeating history. We might not be repeating it in the way of obviously going through like Groundhog Day, where you experience the same day again and again and again, but we're experiencing the same cycle of abuse. Now you look at what's happening in the world now, and you look at sort of the way in which we are being treated, the people are being treated by authorities in the world now. You could look at that as a cycle of abuse. People put their faith in authority, or authority basically fails the people, and therefore the people ultimately get blamed and suffer the consequences of that action. Now sometimes it's the whole people, sometimes it's a segregation or a part of society. So I believe that it comes from somewhere, and there's something to it, and there's lots more to sort of dig in on this. But what I want to say before you jump in, Richard, is this has been something that we've kind of played with in a sense, and it's come up time and time again. And as you go in to see when we go through the evidence, the fact that the ghost box came through and said this was, and it actually names names. It names names. And one of the ways they've kept humanity subservient is they've kept us in a state of conflict, kept us in a state of war and a state of fear. Because fear, apparently, to these entities is like a drug. They feed off it. It's like their food. So, yeah. What was you going to say? Sorry, I just wanted to get our last bit finished.
Well, they basically adrenaline being pumped into the blood. So if they kill, like most animals, you see once they go in for the kill with prey animals, their eyes widen, right? And when you can see them when like a leopard grabs a throat, because it's taking in the adrenaline of the animal that it's killing, and it's in the same sort of lines for there. But I mean, with Ike, he was pretty close, because he was talking about reptilians, and there is a reptilian part of the brain, and it is the oldest part of the human brain, and it's the part of consciousness which, like, if you imagine you receive a phone call, right, and you've done something. And you receive a phone call, and within seconds your brain will go, that's bad, that's trouble, that's going to cause me problems, that's someone who wants to give me grief, and it turns out it's your mum. It's that your brain will go neg, until you realise it's fine. And that's that reptilian part of your brain is systemic in that thought process. But I mean, if we go back, there was I think, and I always had a theory, and I had this when I was young, right? And it's sort of come into fruition. And it was about dinosaurs, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there was a paleontologist named Dale Russell, and he was part of like a Canadian science team. And he looked at skulls and vertebrae, and he was looking at brain sizes, and he said this, he wrote a thesis on it, and other scientists took it on board. And we just discussed the dinosaur he was looking at, Jar, if you can remember the name.
Oh, God, I thought you wrote it down.
No. It's gone up my head.
It's like a Pteranodon or something like that it's called.
Yeah. It's
Troodon, that's it.
Troodon.
Yeah.
And it was basically, it was quite a small dinosaur, but at its brain size, it went through an evolutionary change 65 million years ago. And he did a paper on it and looked at it, and he said that it would be a humanoid reptilian. So it would be upright, it would be super intelligent, and it would basically be the fundamental being that we understand as a reptilian, right? That's what it would have evolved into, right? Now, it could have done this, like we've evolved, if you imagine, over like 4.5 million, 5 million years, right? So in the 65 million year period since the dinosaurs died out, as we've been told, it could have done that 12 times, 13 times over.
Yeah.
And had a million more years on us. So in a million years, I mean, we are leaving the planet now. We are sending vehicles into other worlds. So imagine us in a million years from now. So every 5 million years, we go through that process. And the dinosaurs were around for 148 billion, 148 million years. Yeah, 148 million years. Yeah. So their evolutionary process is insane. Now, that's one of the theories for reptilians, that they evolved, they left the planet, they came back, they did the same, they did the same, they did the same. But like you said, when you reverted back to the Bible, right, in the Garden of Eden, the serpent, in like the interpretation of it, it was a serpent-headed being. And if you look at like Satan, or I think it's Satan or Lucifer, was described as a dragon or a serpent.
Yeah, I think it's in Revelations they say Lucifer releases the dragon, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he's also described as that type of being, a winged serpent or dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and you've got like the word dragon in every culture, nearly every culture on Earth begins with D, has a D sounding name. So Drakia, dragon, Drogon, and you know it in every culture. And we talk about like the crocodile gods of Egypt and the lizard gods, and it's still in Chinese religion, Hindu religion. It's quite something when you build up a big picture of it. We according to history, we were separated, but we have the same, like the Sumerians, and the Anunnaki.
Yeah, it's like the same knowledge has come through several different translations. Exactly. Then. Yeah. And I suppose
go on.
Yeah,
go on. No, go on.
I was going to say that it's basically that there is an argument that could be made that would have happened naturally anyway. That there's only so many archetypes to a story, and therefore, those similarities, because most stories or mythologies would have been taken from an understanding of the world they have around them at the time, and the sort of primitive understanding of the different peoples and stuff. Could you say there was an argument that would have happened naturally as a result of just natural development, natural sort of movement of people? So, because obviously people have moved from place to place, maybe not as much, but influential people who would have had the literacy and ability to sort of write these stories would have actually moved around and things. But could that have actually be explained through just people being inspired and the general sort of movement of people?
Not necessarily, because there's interaction, and the interaction is like if you carve like with hieroglyphics, they're carved in stone, right? So the story had to be as accurate as it could be, right? And what you get a lot of depictions of is these beings, and they're being pampered by humans. They're being, humans are serving them, right? And there was like sacrifice to these beings, and this talk of the vehicles they used, and the like in Egyptian, their lust for blood and children's blood, and that's written in history. If you look at the pharaohs of Egypt, with like the Exodus story, where they killed, how Moses came about, they killed all the firstborn. But in the real history, it's actually that he consumed the blood of the firstborn. If you actually, if you go really into it, that's what it's saying. He consumed the blood for 365 days, and it made him young. And this story, that's on another part of the world. That's a bit too accurate for them to go to all that trouble to write. We're talking miles of history. These things were written over buildings that covered miles.
Yeah, and buildings that have been long since forgotten, and different periods in history as well. So obviously, the Egyptians may not be around the same time as the Sumerians, or that sort of thing. So I suppose then, I think that could account for maybe some portion of it. But as you said, no, I was just bringing that up as a bit of a sort of devil's advocate here. I just want to draw attention.
No.
I just want to draw attention to the chat very quickly because we've got. I just want to say hello to Sean Carter, hello to JGO, hello to People's Poet, hello to Nancy, hello to Walt XV, hello to Three Souls Paranormal. Hi everyone, hello to Michael. I think I've got everyone here. There's some brilliant conversations going on in the chat. And we will try and keep ahead of it, but there's a lot to go through this evening as well. So we will thank you for your contributions, guys. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot. I've already seen something interesting about Buckingham Palace that is going to be factored in quite interesting to some of this as we go forward into future videos. And I know quite a few of you are probably on the ball with this sort of stuff. And just say thank you guys for tuning in. It just means the world to us. It really, really does. Right, shall we go into our first clip?
Yeah, if you want to, yeah.
Well, the first clip I want to go. I'm not sure which one to go to first. Shall we go into the? Well, let's. I tell you what. Let's go into the first time that we got told about reptilians. So we're going to go into that clip first, and then we can basically talk more about it. You know, as we go further on. So I'm just going to clip over to that now. We'll see you guys in a second.
You're listening to Crime. The human reptilian. You're listening to Crime.
I heard that. Oh,
Come there.
if they could affect me.
Way out of it. You're lying.
Basically, the radio bit at the top of it, okay,
You're listening to Crime.
scans through internet radio from all over the world, okay?
I know that
This is what slows it down. Demonic, if you like, and not very deep. It's just what it's been slowed down a bit. Almost as you we should hear them live in videos. Yeah, I've seen something famous. Well,
see if it fits.
Talking about David Icke.
There's my name.
yeah, guys,
It's a growing threat.
we have no control of any of this.
I know it sounds like we're kind of bouncing around a little bit when we are there, but it's because obviously the responses are there's a bit of time in between them. This is very, very early in our experimentation, so that clip was taken during April of 2017, and it was the second time that the device that we are using is called the Huff Paranormal SCD2, and we use a portal device with it, which basically is a modified speaker that has things like reverb and reverse pedals on it. For any of you guys that don't know what you've just seen, I'll just explain to you very briefly. This is a paranormal experimentation. It is experimentational, okay, because we've highlighted there are plenty of like sort of problems with it on the channel before. But basically, the idea is that spirit can manipulate audio. Now, if any of you have ever heard of the terminology EVP, electronic voice phenomena, is when a spirit or a being manipulates the ambient background noise of a recording to give a response to a question. What this device enables us to do. So this device is sweeping radio at a very, very high rate, and to the point where only sort of very, very short words would come out from radio. And some of the stuff does come out through radio. We're not sure whether it keeps saying you're listening to crime, whether or not that was a glitch or that was meant to happen. I still don't know, right? But what you tend to find is if you look at these responses, what you're looking for is intelligent responses. So responses that either relate to what's going on in the room, or relate to the response that came before or the response that came afterwards. Because that can't be radio, because it's already left that radio station of which it swept through. So let's say it's 100 radio stations, it's going and it's sweeping through them. And it's just providing an audio source of which spirit manipulate to create these responses. I honestly don't know how this works. I've talked to people who've got backgrounds in software and that sort of thing, and it shouldn't work, but it does. And you can look at the videos on this channel of some of the validation that we've had, and just even that clip there. There's another clip, a couple of clips we're going to show tonight that provide even more validation as to this is a real phenomena. And if you want to know more about it, I would say look up Huff Paranormal, because he's very much the forefront of this, and look up on YouTube, look up Breakthrough, and any information you can find on Konstantinis Radive, because he is as Raudive, because he is pretty much the godfather of ITC. So essentially, if any of you guys watch things like Ghost Adventurers and that sort of thing, and you hear the spirit box radio where it's making that sound, it's a very similar version of that. It's just using digital frequencies rather than analog frequencies, and therefore you can cut out the so you get a much crisper and clearer response. I thought, because I know we've got some new faces tonight, I thought I would explain a little bit about ITC. Again, with these responses, there's a lot we can take. Well, they relate to that, they relate to this, but there's also there's also a lot of questions surrounding it. So by no means are these definite answers. This is just evidence to what we found through our experimentation. For me personally, I stand by them, but I can understand why people would think differently. Richard, your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it does mention the word, obviously, as you heard it there, guys. It said reptilians, and it was like it was talking about awakening and astral and to defeat it and different things. It's kind of, it builds a picture in that sort of short set of responses. It builds a picture.
Yeah.
They are open to interpretation, right? They are. But, I mean, that's pretty clear. And you can see by our reactions, we were pretty shocked that it came through. I didn't... Yeah, it's surprising. It's surprising, when it's like anything. We search for answers. We've been searching for answers for a long time. And it's kind of weird when you find them. It's kind of, you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
You sort of like go,
I
oh my God.
I watch it back and I still can't believe it's us.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I mean, it was a strange set of circumstances that led us to do that, which we shouldn't have never have done live, which we discussed on the show. But it was, I mean, it's something. I mean, is it for something to be coming up with it in that regard, with the equipment we're using and the way it works? It's something. There's something there. There's something that was trying to tell us about this subject for whatever reason, which I find, I just find it a little bit. It's a bit strange. It's something you can't quite put your finger on it. How it makes you feel.
No, and I've transcribed the entirety of that session and many others, and there are more sessions where this has come up that I haven't transcribed yet, because to actually go through them and sit there and take each it takes a it takes a lot. It takes a lot out of me, and I described when I told my own story on this channel. You know, it can put you in a place, and you've got to be like psychologically able to. You know, there's things that it's said about things like child abuse that we've not put up on the channel, and I think we will in time. But you know, it's how you put that across, because it's heartbreaking. You know, some of the stuff that it's coming through with is genuinely heartbreaking, you know, and genuinely frightening. And because it involves a mechanics of a world that we, as humanity in general, are still not sure exists. Never mind understand how it works. We're still sort of at war with each other about whether there is life after death. You know, the general length and breadth of humanity then. There's still a lot of polarization on that topic, even though I think the evidence, the proof is there. The proof is abundantly clear. But it's a case of, you know, whether people choose to see it and whether they can actually deal with the consequences of seeing it. Because, you know, it takes some balls. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that as, look at me, look what I'm doing. I say that as someone that did feel a bit like that originally going into it, and kind of had my ass handed to me because of it. You know, you warned me, other people warned me, you know, that this is hell of a rabbit hole to go down, and it is one hell of a rabbit hole to go down. And I felt, speaking from the person who's done a lot of the ITC work as part of the team, you know, it set me on a personal journey, and to have that come through, for me personally, there's been so many other validations that we've had and we've shown time and again on this channel. You know, it's something, and that night it went deeper, and I believe that this is someone. I don't know where it's my brother, but someone talking about a time that they lived here on Earth, right? Which could be my brother, I don't know. But they talked about a time that they lived in, a very documented, you know, recorded era of history, and they, in this next clip, give a name in the next clip we're going to show. But before I show that, Rich, is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, I mean, the whole concept of reptilians, right? You're going to get the best. You'll see the best on YouTube, ridicule it, right? But it's how old is the story, right? And how much of the truth is hidden. It's just the fact that the story is so old, it's written in stone. And that changes things, if you ask me. When something's written in stone, it changes its validity.
Definitely. Now, I think we'll talk about the sort of process of this. But we'll go into the next clip, and we'll discuss it then from there. I'm sorry I'm disappearing off screen, guys. My eyesight isn't the best, so when I switch over, I do actually have to look closely at the screen. So that's why it looks like my head is bowing out of the screen every now and then. So we're gonna go to the next clip then, Rich, and this is the one where it names a person of history. So let's take a look.
You are listening to Crime.
Wrong clip.
The human.
The right one.
The bottle is burning.
We'll start again.
The bottle is burning. These reptilians. One
the way it comes through.
Sorry, slight audio issue. Say that again, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We had a slight audio issue there. I can hear you now, loud and clear.
Right, yeah, basically it's, it's there, Reptilian, it talks about it, says it was, love, war, it's, I don't know, it's there. I mean, we're not saying this is, 100% spirit. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know the real source of it, but we just know it's there, and it was given to us. And we're on this subject of the reptilians, and it's, which is more than you'll see if you're looking for this subject. You won't see a sort of abstract source giving it fruition, but there it is. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of, I've looked into this subject. Like I said, I've delved into this subject, and I've not seen something like that. I've seen people saying they've gone to the royal family and they've been to banquets and sacrifices and this and that, and they can say it, but they've no evidence of it. But this is something.
Well,
why is it giving us this message? What's it on about?
Well, we're just going to bring up the browser here. This is Prince Louis Ferdinand of Prussia in 1806. Prince Louis Ferdinand of Prussia, Frederick Lumberg Christian, 18th November 1772. It basically says, and we're going to go into his military history here. Ferdinand participated in the French Revolutionary War. Sorry, my mouth's a bit dry, so I'm finding it hard to speak. It's quite warm where I am at the moment. Ferdinand participated in the French Revolutionary Wars and was wounded during the Siege of Mainz in 1806. He was one of the principal advocates for resuming the war against Napoleon and the First French Empire, triggering the War of the Fourth Coalition. So, that's given a fact there that has been literally validated in history. I'm using Wikipedia, and as all good university lecturers used to say, never use Wikipedia to validate something, but just even on that, that is generally, he did advocate for war. Now, was it the fact that some lizard came down and sort of dressed himself in a suit of a human, like in Doctor Who with a Slovene? I don't think it's something like that. I think it's more on the spiritual level. Whereas when you're born, not every soul comes from the same place, and maybe not every soul forgets. So I wonder whether it's a sense of they can actually whatever the mechanism is that creates the life cycle. So when you die, you go to somewhere else, like the spirit world or whatever, and then you come back to Earth. There are other realms that maybe can use that process in some way. That to me seems more plausible than a reptilian hijacking Buckingham Palace and putting on a queen suit. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do know what you're trying to say. It's hard to, I think this is something that happens quite often with these conspiracies, because it's hard. Because one of the things about these reptilians, right, is their emotional level, right, is they don't give off emotion, right? They find it hard to give off emotion. Now, this is one of the things I find funny. I was watching Parliament, right, and I was watching, I believe it was Corbyn, talking about a gentleman that died, starved to death in his own flat, right, because of the Tory party's policies and stuff, right? And I watched Mr. Johnson, and it was the most unsympathetic, one of the most coldest and callous expressions I've ever seen, right? To think that you cause someone to starve to death, right? And it was kind of bizarre. And I've been looking out for this for some time, right? And I've seen Theresa May do it. I watched Tony Blair do it. I've watched quite a few people in authority have the same cold look when it comes to bombing people.
What about Gordon Brown?
Or causing harm. Gordon Brown, yeah, all of them. I never seen real empathy, right, on things like when you talk about taking life, right?
What about Trump and Corbyn?
Corbyn, now I've seen him do a talk on his soapbox, right, and it was quite powerful. But when it comes to things like that, I think you can get in such a mindset, right, that you can literally, you're thinking so hard of what you're saying and how you're being portrayed or how you're portraying yourself. But I told you, Mr. Corbyn come to the house after we got flooded. And we had a little moment where I showed him kindness, where, you know, and the press weren't being very kind to him at all, right? And he looked at me in the eyes, and he was quite surprised at this act of kindness. It was only a small gesture, but he genuinely looked. He was like surprised, and yeah, if you watch that, but that's one of the characteristics of so-called reptilians, is they're emotionless. And if you look at these people, right, and the decisions they're making and the reaction to it, it is callous, it is cold, and it is emotionless. So in that sense, if you've got someone that's like really, you know, looking at this stuff and you watch that, that's only going to add fuel to the fire.
Are you saying that they're all reptilians, or do you believe they've created this system that eradicates emotion? So people that would have had emotions generally tend to... Because I don't think you need to have all the Houses of Parliament reptilians. I just think you need a few key players.
Yeah, I don't think they're reptilians. I mean, if you look at like the history of it with the Masons, with the 13 families, I mean, the 13 families, the ruling families of the Masons, and things like the Illuminati are supposedly reptilians, and then everybody else underneath clones, or what they call them, crossbreeds. So I mean, but if you look at that, if what I'm saying is, if you're looking at something like this and then you see that emotionlessness in these people and the decisions they're making, it's not going to steer you away, is it? It's going to make you think, Christ, are they you know, because this is some cold stuff that goes down. We're talking, you know, I know we are not in the position or privy enough to make these decisions, because we probably make them a lot better and a lot differently. But they are. I'm sorry. I know from what I've seen, they're cold, they're calculated, they're callous. I mean, you look at Prince Andrew's interview over with the Epstein thing. It's weird. He's a weird guy. You know, his reaction to that is odd. And some of their reactions are very, very strange. So, like I said, if you're looking into this subject and you see that, what else would you be like? Well, it didn't look like, you know, to you, a human, hearing news of something they've done to cause suffering, you'd have a reaction. You'd expect an emotional reaction. You know, you might not, like, you know, it's like you see a soldier after war and they have that look. They call it the 1,000-yard stare, but they have that look where they've seen horror. You know, these people, you know, psychologically, they don't get they're not on the field. They're not the ones causing the horror. They're getting someone else to do their dirty work for them. So they you know, they're separate from it in that sense. But still, you'd expect something. You know, you'd expect a glimmer of humanity in there. And I tell you, if you're watching this show, you go back and have a look at some of the things. Like, you look back at Theresa May with the bombings, and you have a look at her husband in the links with that. You have a look at Corbyn talking about this guy who died in a flat. I can't think of his name. I wish I could, because I feel a bit bad about it. And you have a look at Boris Johnson's reaction. You have a look at Tony Blair's reaction, right, over weapons of mass destruction. Right, you go back and have a look at it. Right, you go back and have a look at Thatcher. You can have a look at interviews with her, and I'm telling you now, you'll see
the eyes.
Empty space. Yeah, look at the eyes.
Look
you'll
at
see
the eyes.
emptiness.
I'm not on about you'll see like the eyes end up like a slit. The eyes are always eyes are always very dark. It's like you look at my eyes here. I look for that. There's a glint in my eye. There's the light captures my eye, right? And that happens with most people, right? You see anyone. Most people have got that look in their eye. It's just like there's life there. There's life force. There's a
soul.
There's that intangibility. There's just that glint. That just when you look at some of these people, you look in their eyes. There's nothing. It's just there's no glint there. It's just it's dead. It just reminds me of like the eyes of a dead body. And the one person now, I don't really want to get into this sort of line of thinking because I'm not fully up on this, and there's a lot of dispute over it, and I'm not entirely convinced out of it. But the one person I seen that kind of I felt like that around, right, was when I watched the documentary on Bill Gates on Netflix. The man, and I he could be, you know, we've had disputes about this before, right? The guy's invested like God knows how much money in healthcare worldwide, right? He could be doing out the kindness of his own heart for all I know, until I actually get a chance to, if I speak to the man. I don't know. He could just be misled, right? I always try and sort of sit on the fence a little bit. But if I was to trust my gut reaction, there was two things that surprised me. The first thing is he has a tarot reading every week. It's actually built into his schedule. And the second thing was the guy just looks as if he doesn't fit into his own skin. And again, it's not enough to base a judgment on someone, and I never would. But I remember just feeling really uneasy about it. There was something about it from whether the documentary was presented or some of the stuff he said I was so vehemently opposed to in my point of view, or what. But there was something there. The guy just didn't. He looked like he was.
It's okay to call him a creepy mofo. It's okay, but
no, he was creepy. No, but it was beyond that. But I'm not saying he was a creepy motherfucker, right? It was just as if like he reminded me of as if like there was like a robot, as if like there was nothing. There was the body, but no driver. There was nothing behind it. It was just. There was no life behind it, no soul behind it, there was just darkness behind it, like, and it's just weird. Yeah. The guys always creep me out, always just really it just makes me feel unsettled when I look at the man. And I'm sorry, I don't like to speak ill of people, but that's just genuinely how I feel. It is. I want to go to the chat very quickly, so we'll see if we can bring the chat up on screen actually, and see who's talking here. Bring up some of your comments. So Nancy and People's Poet seem to be having a conversation. People's fear and negativity. Solar function. People's fear and negativity. If you get enough people thinking the way they actually create their fears and make them real. Yes, that is very true. Poet says most have been abused as children. There's a huge conversation going on in the chat, which I'm gonna have to have a read through, guys, and we'll have to see if we'll do some sort of response video to this. I don't really have, at the moment it's quite a lot with my blindness to read through, but it seems to be a brilliant conversation going on in the chat. I don't know if you've spotted any comments, Rich, that you want to bring particular attention to.
it's going way too fast for me. I will have a look at it when we're finished, and we'll try and comment on it then.
Well, when we do
yeah,
our
I
now,
mean,
when we do
this-
our now news segment, when we meet on Sunday to do our now news videos, we'll do a comment response video to the chat, guys, and we'll put that up especially for you guys, because I think doing a comment response video would be good actually, because some of the stuff you guys have written to us over the past few videos have been absolutely brilliant, and I think we should honour that, Rich.
Some of the comments we've researched and we've looked into, and we've done requests. If you've asked us to look into a subject, we've looked into it for you guys, and it's amazing. We love it. We love you guys. It's what we do it for.
Yeah,
it's
what keeps us.
That's what we call them.
Yeah, you para peeps. That's what keeps us going. And it genuinely does. I'm not saying that out of, I'm saying that from the bottom of my heart. The fact that people are taking the time out their Wednesday evening to watch us two ramble on about reptilians, it means the world to us. It means the world to us. Rich, I think we'll go into our last clip for the evening. This is from the Now Investigation 6, and this is just after we had our the clearest response saying it was the Council of 12 that we were speaking to.
Right.
And you ask, is there species of ET that want to harm us? Okay, and this is the response to that, and I'm just going to bring that up for us now.
Are there beings out there that want to harm us? We get that voice quite often. That was the voice who screamed at us before. Went, Rah! Are there beings out there that mean to harm us? Can you answer that question? It's uncomfortable for you. That's what that sounded like you said. Yeah. No, we need to know. You give us these messages.
Are these beings on Earth right now?
Yeah.
I just want to say very quickly, I'm just reading briefly through the chat very quickly. Nancy, it sounds like you have a really, really interesting story. If you want to talk to us further, or any of you guys have any stories that you want to share, and you want to talk to us directly, or even talk to us on the show, we are more than welcome, more than open if any of you guys want to come on the show and tell your stories. That's how a lot of you have actually came on this show. Is through the chat and through these different shows. So any of you want to tell your story, I'd love to learn more about it. We are going to take a copy of the chat, and if you guys want to sort of just drop us an email or drop us a comment on one of the videos or something, so we can talk to you further. But Nancy in the chat, sounds very much like you've got a really interesting contactee experience there, and really, really, really interesting. A lot of what you guys are saying is really, really interesting, and to be honest with you, I'm trying to read it and trying to keep up with it by just picking up sort of different points and different things going along. But it's lovely to see you guys having a chat as well in the chat, and sort of joining in along with the discussion. It's really, really, really good. It is, and that's fantastic. Honest to God, absolutely brilliant. That's made my day. It has literally made my day. It has. So for that last clip, this reaffirms what we had in the clips before and kind of sums it up. They were beings that run awry. They take human form in some way, shape or form. And the goal is to keep us in perpetual You know, perpetual negativity, perpetual darkness, perpetual sickness, perpetual, you know, just not advancing. Perpetual slavery, I believe, is the right word I was looking for.
Yeah. Rule over us. I mean, it was if you look at the way that conversation comes about, right? And obviously you hear me repeating myself because we don't hear the responses as they happen because they're so quick. No, sometimes we do, but they're so quick. You sort of like, you're trying to process it. But if you look at the way that conversation comes out, it was a star they explored. There's so much correlation in the way the conversation flows from their side.
Yeah.
It paints a picture. That paints a pretty perfect picture of what they were trying to tell us.
Yeah.
It is self-explanatory. So, I mean, it's the thought of reptilians being on Earth, ruling over us, right, is no more crazy than a bunch of rich people poisoning our foods, neglecting us, and consuming all for themselves. What is the difference?
Yeah.
It sounds mad because you check in a reptilian, but it's the same story. It's the same story. You just add in lizards. I know it sounds crazy, but you are. If you look at the history of this with the Drachia and the reptoids and the greys, and you look at the wars, you can find this all out if you do your research, guys, in the Sumerian text where there was a battle and that's how we came about, and you look at it through all these different processes. Don't go for the celebrities morphing, because that, unfortunately, I mean, you've seen the deep fake stuff, right? I mean, the technology we have right now is about 40 years behind what is out. So you take that technology 20 years back and it's still past us now. So, these videos where these eyes are changing and different things like that, you got old Mr. Bieber, when he's in court and his eye, that's a camera glitch, right? If you look at that, if you watch that, that's the camera can't distinguish between his eyelids open and his eyelids shut. So it morphed the two, right? There is some things, if you look at them, let me get this right, Lacerta, right? It's called the Lacerta files, right? It was two Swiss gentlemen interviewed a reptilian female, and it's Lacerta files 1, Lacerta files 2, and it's about several episodes it goes over. It is quite something. I think I've sent it to Jazz, so there might be a link in this description.
I don't know if you sent me that one. The one you sent me was an interview with Jacqueline something as well. Or is that the same woman?
Yeah, no, that's the same guy. He says you can use it. The interview, the whole part 1 and part 2 is in that video. It's 2 hours and 80 minutes, I believe. Right?
Yeah, we got it. We'll put in the description below.
This also a soldier. This is a very strange video. This came out quite some time ago, and it's an American soldier. I believe they look like Marines, and he's a coloured soldier, coloured fella, and or black, if I think that's what he's supposed to say. And he's talking about aliens, and he is. I mean, you've got the soldiers. They're taking the mick out of him. But this boy, he's being filmed. The kid actually says, I'm going to put this on YouTube. He doesn't falter, right? He never strays. He's not, you can feel it. You can tell he's uncomfortable because other people come in and they go, no, aliens again, is it? But he's quite direct. And there's quite something in it, right? The link will be in the description as well. Watch that. That's quite something. I see this video years and years ago, and I've never known quite what to make of it. If you guys find information on it, or you know anything about it, or if it's bogus or whatever, let us know, because it's always been something I've watched the video quite a few times. But I mean, you just saw, guys. Unlike anything else. We didn't, that just came out. That just came out of a device that we turned on and we asked questions. I asked, is there beings here to harm us? And you saw the response. You witnessed it the same as we did. That is exactly what came out. That's what it said. It's something.
I'm sorry about that noise there. I just posted that link into the chat, the one of the military guy, and I forgot that the volume came on with YouTube. So I just posted that on the chat as well, so you guys can actually have a look at it. So I've just posted that link in there, Rich. I won't post the Lacerta files in it right now because you've given, if you type that into the YouTube, you can actually pick it up. But I know that one was quite obscure, so I thought I would put that in the chat so anyone want to look at it now, because obviously this video will take about 24 hours to process. I thought if you want to have a look at it now, they can have a look at it now. So that's why there was a little bit of distraction there with the sound, because that was that video playing. It is. Well, guys, it has been quite an interesting evening. We'll probably revisit this at some point. And there's quite a lot to go through. We'll try and put this into smaller clips. There's so much now that's coming out on this channel that we're almost getting to daily videos. Me and Richard now meet twice a week so that we can go through all the stuff that we're both collecting and put out the videos for you, hopefully on a daily or at least a very, very regular basis. So any you guys find any of those videos interesting and you want to share them, what you might notice, and I wanted to say as well, is that video there, the one about ETs mean to harm us. There is a video on the channel which I rushed out literally the day we did it, and I had some of the translations slightly wrong. There's literally one or two words that are slightly wrong right on there, and if you compare the two videos you will see that, well, you can hear them, the responses are completely audible. Most of those responses that I think you would agree with that, Rich, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. That's what I mean. When we did this over like 2.5 hours, right? That's you imagine going over every clip, right? That's a lot of work. But when I think the spirit box was, Jack. But when I think the spirit box or whatever this communication device is doing, when it was working, that's the kind of responses you get.
Yeah.
Because that is actually answering the question I asked. You'll see, like, in some of the videos where you ask a question and it goes off topic and it comes up and it's a bit nonsensical. So you're like, But that, when it comes up with stuff like that, I mean, you guys heard it. I mean, I don't know what to say. I can't tell you that, that is aliens and they're telling us about reptilians, but they're talking about something. And it sounds like there's beings that mean to harm us, and that's what they're saying.
And this is where we have to stand our ground and embrace our divinity. Well, as we've talked about on so many occasions on this channel. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us for this now debate. Richard, do you have any final thoughts for tonight?
No, just look, if you're looking at this subject, if you're looking into it, right, you're going to see the people saying they're calling people nutters and different things. But I've said this quite a few times, and this has been over the last couple of weeks. It seems to be a running theme. The world is pretty crazy, right? Regardless, right? And there is definitely stuff out there that we are not being told, right? If you look at Bob Lazar, there's so much of it, guys. There's history we're not being taught properly. There's people who have worked in these things. There's so much. So if one lie leads to loads of lies, that's how it feels. If they can lie about that, they can lie about this, and so on and so forth. So just open your mind up to it. Have a look at it. We're not saying it's gospel. We're just saying it's an interesting theory that fits in with the way the world runs. You've got the people above us, the ruling class, you've got royalty, you've got money, and there is a massive separation between us. So a story like that is going to give you, is something to chew, is something to bite on. So, but it is, with it, I think with us, I think it's a little bit more different because we're showing something heavy. We're giving a bit of evidence. Yeah. You know, it's giving a bit of validity to something that is so bizarre.
Absolutely. Guys, well, as I said, you've got brilliant stories. Please stay in touch with us. We're going to do a comment response video at some point soon, and so I'd like to sort of, if you guys want to comment on this video, comment on some of the other videos, give our videos a share, give them a thumbs up, all the old social media tropes. but most of all, thank you from the bottom of our heart. You keep us going. You keep us sane in these times. And I'm talking from my personal perspective, because doing this is a love. It's a passion. And I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. And, you guys keep adding your bits to it as well, because really it does help. It does help a lot. And the things you guys come up with, can help a lot more sometimes than the things that me and Richard can, research on our own. And I think this is where we ultimately want to get to with Paranormal now, when it becomes more of a collaborative and more of a team effort and more of a community. Because that's what it's starting to become, and that's what we've been going over, some plans, some thoughts and different things in the future that can hopefully sustain this as more of a community, and there'll be more sort of outlets and things for you guys to explore as we go further and further. I'm actually at a point now, Rich, where I can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel, and see that this stuff, this stuff is reaching people, and this stuff is helping people in many different ways, and that's really humbling. That's really humbling. So thank you very much, guys. Love and light to you all. You take care of yourselves in these interesting times, and we'll see you tomorrow with our scheduled normal video. You take care.
Love and light, para peeps. See you in the next.